Racial slurs!
Oh no.
Hey, this is Brenton Lengel. I guess comic creator of Snow White Zombie Apocalypse and Darude Shadow of the People, and sometimes debater of right-wing weirdos. And this is Insurrection with Brenton Lengel, which is involving myself and, of course, Bobby B of the Mustache Mafia podcast, who has been essentially my co-host and the person that I subject to my debates with weirdos. But yeah, so here we are. Now that I've thoroughly alienated everyone in the audience, I think what we can do is we can get started on this debate that I had earlier in the week, but I don't know. There's no time anymore. COVID has destroyed
It's so weird.
Everything.
It's so weird. Man, so it's kind of tradition for me to start with how Brenton ruined my day by subjecting me to online content. And you know what? One, I will say that this conversation that you had was actually much more pleasant than I was expecting it to be. But there I was out in a field, and I've got a bunch of lumber right now that I have a bunch of bugs on that I'm trying to get rid of. And I'm giving this lumber away. We're giving this lumber away to a guy who has Parkinson's who likes woodworking. So we don't want to treat it with toxic chemicals. So I'm out in the middle of the woods with my grandfather, and we're making a vacuum chamber to try to get rid of termites because we reasoned that they have to breathe. So we're taking this vacuum chamber up to about negative 26 atmospheres. And it turns out that termites can actually live at that negative pressure. So,
oh wow!
Yeah, so as I've worked like 2 weeks out with like a welding torch and all kinds of other vacuum pumps and stuff, I get this text from Brenton asking me if I want to do a post debate, and I'm like, oh my God, it's going to be some weirdo, like crypto Nazi psychopath. I go to the liquor store, I get myself some expensive beer and a cigar, and I sit down, and I was pleasantly surprised by how well this went. I was like, wow, I don't even need to get hammered to watch this. So yeah. Thank you, Brenton.
Well, thank you. I aim to please on occasion. This debate was really different for a couple of reasons. So first of all, this was an abortion debate. And it was very important to me specifically, and you'll see this in my opening statement. By the way, I was the only one with an opening statement.
You were.
Yeah. But anyway, I just like to think I bring a much higher level of class to these debates than what they usually are online. All right, so this was an abortion debate, and one of the things that was really important to me personally, because it's rare that I will go to James and ask for a debate, especially when I'm busy, and I'm like insanely busy right now. I'm finishing up a screenplay, have 2 more comic scripts I have to write, have a graphic novel to complete, a graphic novel Kickstarter to fulfill, and also, I'm the parent and a father and dealing with all that normal stuff. So all in all, I normally would never go to James, but in this instance, I really wanted to do the debate because this is, and I say this in my opening statement, my wife and I, we have a son, he's 4 years old, and we would like him to have a little baby brother or sister. But unfortunately, my wife is high risk for pregnancies. In fact, my son was delivered 6 weeks premature, and they still don't know why. So she could very easily, if we try again, get into a situation where her life is in danger. And we need abortion as an option in that case, because we cannot risk that my son will grow up without his mother in trying to bring his baby brother or sister into the world. So, the Roe v. Wade leak happened, and my wife and I talked about it, and frankly, we're worried about the direction that this country is going in, specifically because people are not connected with the reality of what abortion is, and that was why I wanted to do this debate. So yeah, it was against Kay Fellows, who is she's a progressive pro-life activist. I actually like her a lot. I follow her on Twitter. A lot of people should. And then there was this other guy, Javier, who I was worried about at the beginning. I was also joined by Josh Hilditch. And for any of you guys who know Josh, like he and I have been kind of online arguing collaborators since like 2014,
Hmm.
maybe 2012. He's a former ANCAP who is incredibly charismatic and has gradually become a market anarchist, and now he is on the Fakertarians podcast, which is a podcast you guys should check out. And if you want to see like a tanky just get obliterated, watch Josh Hilditch. Like, it's going to be so bad you're going to feel bad for the guy, but watch Josh Hilditch's debate on vegetarians with a guy by the name of Billy Bob. And oh my God, it's a slaughter. So this was a little different. It was Josh Hilditch's first time on Modern Day Debate, and that is the setting if people have not seen this debate yet.
Josh is a cool guy. I kind of know him in passing, through some online spaces. Really, really great guy. He did exactly what I thought he was going to do, which was amazing in this debate. I freaking love this guy, and he sounds exactly like I pictured his voice because I've only ever heard him over text.
Yep. He asked me beforehand. He's like, should I show my face or should I just use use this Max Stirner avatar?" And I'm like, well, the avatar is pretty iconic for you, but in a debate, it's better for people to be able to see your face and you not just be like a voice coming through. Sorry, Bobby.
Not my face, man. Like,
yeah.
I don't want to break anybody's cameras.
Yeah, so like it was important. So even though Josh looks like Sonic the Hedgehog, I feel that did not hurt us. So yeah, Bobby, I guess let's go in. So what was your takeaway on this? Like, at least the beginning, the opening statements. I did one. Javier try to do one.
Yeah, your opening statements are always good, man, because you actually take time to write them out. It reminds me of my days doing collegiate speech and debate. I did Lincoln Douglas debate in National Forensics Association, which sounds like it's CSI, but it's actually speech and debate. So it's a lot less cool than you think it is. You do really good ones, man, and you don't memorize them, but like you're close enough to the point where you deliver them very well. Your points were all pretty salient. You provided a decent like personal example to get kind of the audience to view this as less of an abstract issue and more of a personal issue, which I think the pro-life people kind of do a bad job at, despite their attempts at it. So yeah, you did great on your opening statement, man. I was right behind you, and I like the new debate moderator, bro, because I haven't seen this guy moderate anything, but he had I don't know what your policy on cursing is, but he had a little note when you were going over this, time's up, effers.
Yeah, I saw that. I mean, my policy on cursing is go ahead and do it. Like,
okay.
The thing is that like YouTube censors will demonetize a video if there's like heavy swearing right at the beginning. But beyond that, I've never really had too many problems with it. What YouTube chooses to censor and what it doesn't is really, really weird. I actually had to cut off the beginning of my last debate with Hake, who, by the way, Hake is debating Jangles right now. He should be finishing up on that, and I'm halfway considering just dropping a super chat in there to see if I can get people to come on over here and watch me talk about a debate that's already happened, or hell, maybe bring Jangles on at some point. But either way, let's stay focused on this. By the way, just wanted to show this really quickly from Gempt. Glad you debated abortion as a counter to Nazi Richard Spencer. Yes. Oh my God. The first modern day debate that was done with Kay on abortion after this thing was freaking Richard Spencer.
Oh God.
And
is he still a thing?
Say what?
Is he still a thing?
No. He's on Modern Day Debate. He's not a thing anymore.
Touche.
I'm kidding, James. I'm kidding.
You're kidding, James, but not Richard.
No. Richard. I mean, Richard Spencer went from being kind of the focus of the building alt-right movement, and then got punched in the face, and Antifa drove him off, and he said it's not fun anymore, and he stopped doing it. So yeah, he's trying to regain some of the media spectacle that he has, but I honestly think he's had his 15 minutes, and there's not going to be much after that. Also, by the way, fun fact here, swearing is the spice of life. Indeed it is. When it's weird because in my writing lately, I've gotten less sweary, but when I first started out as a writer, I wrote a play called Trojan Men, It was about being like what it's really like to be in a fraternity, because I was unfortunately in a fraternity in college. And during that, I specifically tried to elevate swearing to an art form. And surprise, surprise, the play has not been produced.
Imagine that. I don't think you're going to sell that to the tourists.
Well, I wrote it essentially to be performed by college students, because the thing is it has like a giant cast for now, like 12. It's a cast of 12, and like they're all 20 somethings. There's really no role for anyone older than that. And then on top of that, like theater has moved in such a way that like people are like, literally theater companies are like, I don't know if we can pay 4 actors. Can you do it? Can you just do 2? And then like you write one for 2, and they'll go, I don't know if we can sell this if your name won't win us tickets just starting. So can you become famous and then we'll do your play?
The culture industry is a harsh mistress, brother.
It definitely is. So all right. So the beginning was good. Josh talked with me after this. How did you feel like Josh's style versus my style? Because
I think it's actually. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say they were really different. Josh was very, and I will be uploading the video to this channel. I just haven't, because they sent it to me, but then they didn't give me permission to download it. So now I'm just waiting for them to get back with that. Same thing with the debate I did with that Alex Stein 99 guy. I haven't been able to upload that because they haven't sent me the file. So I will be putting that out very soon, as that was one of the stronger ones in my opinion, particularly by the end. So yeah, I mean, how did you think me and Josh worked together? And how do you think our 2 styles worked, and where do you think they clashed?
I think you guys actually worked together pretty well, because you brought the formal kind of debate. I don't want to say debate bro, because I don't think you're a debate bro. Formal debate thing.
I am a debate man, sir.
Okay. I'm a bro, so not a debate bro, but I am a bro. The styles actually complement each other pretty well, because you bring the formal argumentation to it, whereas Josh kind of brings a conversational attitude towards it. It's a lot easier to kind of consume things that are casual. So by being more conversational, Josh did a really good job of relating to the audience. Because the audience on modern day debate, frankly, is probably not there to consume like not high-minded.
They think they're there for high-minded content.
Yeah, but they're there to kind of consume a clash of ideas, and it's easier to consume that conversationally, because the average person isn't like a trained rhetorician. They're not like super into like the formalities of debate. They probably haven't read Robert's Rules of Order, which I'm going to take credit for writing, and you can look it up.
Bobby wrote Robert's Rules of Order.
Yes, they're Robert's Rules of Order. They always take out the part about whiskey and cigars. I don't know why, in all the editions, but
I didn't even know about that. So,
well, I just made it up, so that's why.
You got me, Bobby.
I did.
Everybody clip that. I was owned by Bobby. Put it out on the internet. Brenton Lengel owned.
I could do a whole video sometime about the subject, but we're talking about abortion right now. I actually was really also pleasantly surprised by the other side. Javier, I haven't heard of him. He's probably got a way bigger presence than I do. Seems like an okay guy with some bad ideas.
That was what I got. I'm sorry, keep going.
And God, I just blanked on her name. The
Kay Fellows.
Say again.
Kay Fellows.
Okay, so K, I'm gonna remember that because it's one letter and I can do that. Dumb ex-army guy here, guys, so bear with me. But yeah, K also was a pretty cool person with some ideas I disagree with. But they were both honest, I think, about their ideas, and they didn't try to like mischaracterize your position, and they didn't endorse like genocide or slavery. So I was waiting for the shoe to drop like for 2 hours. I'm smoking a big Asylum 13 on the porch, and I'm just like, when's it gonna happen? When's it gonna happen? It didn't happen.
Yeah,
I was very happy about that.
Josh might have been one of the reasons why it didn't go that way. Like with Kay, it was never going to go that way because we know each other, we respect each other. She's wrong on this issue, in my opinion. But I really don't. I really don't think you can square you know, I don't think you can square legally forbidding abortion while simultaneously having a problem with the government doing like most things that people would think that the government does.
Or anything. Yeah.
She didn't speak a lot in the debate either, and me and Josh were wondering if it was because my opening statement, I did my research on her beforehand, and so my opening statement actually answered a lot of arguments that she tends to put forth. So I'm wondering if I kind of just like got ahead of her.
Maybe it was also kind of when three dudes are talking about like a subject and there's one woman in the room.
Mhm.
I don't know Kay personally, but there is a tendency to kind of drown the woman out, and it's a really nasty thing that just kind of happens. Uh,
Yeah, because I felt bad about that. But also, like, if somebody's not, jumping in, especially during a debate, like,
oh, you
yeah,
didn't do it intentionally. It's just something that we have to work on as a society.
I would agree with you. Yeah, so I felt that Kay had obviously the stronger points. She was more well read on the issue. Um, what was really interesting and what I liked about having Josh was that he was able, because he is so charismatic and funny and kind of like on point right there. He was able to defuse a lot of counter arguments by changing the subject. Which if you guys ever do a 2v2 debate, if you've got someone who's as talented at banter as Josh is, you can really walk away in a very strong position if they are there to prevent the other team from mischaracterizing your arguments or from jumping in and not allowing you to speak, because that's a big part of the internet debates. Like once they get to the open, this is the reason why oftentimes it will devolve into a shouting match, because intentionally or unintentionally certain parties within the debate will try to control the debate and try to speak more often than the other one. And so it was really great with Josh because he was just really, really solid on that. And also I felt like I saw that he came in and was like, I want to understand this, and was asking questions specifically of Javier and Kay. And he knew the answers to those questions, what he was going to say next beforehand, like based on what the response might be. So, I think both of us had done our homework and we're prepared for this. So I felt pretty good about it. Yeah. So I guess let's keep going. So, what did you think about the dynamic and about kind of Josh's ability to tactically derail the discussion?
No, yeah, that's great because when you turn it into a conversation instead of a script, which is what you're talking about, Josh doing,
Mhm.
you become more honest with each other. Because if you're just waiting for your turn to go to your script, you're right, it can devolve into just like a shouting match,
Yeah.
or just people exchanging, well, like, like, well, I read in the New Yorker, well, I read in Pro-Life magazine, well, I read in Liberal Monthly, well, I read in, Stomp
Mhm.
Illegal Immigrants Quarterly,
Oh
and
my God. That's funny also because so this is off the topic of the debate, but afterwards I actually went into like the post-debate room.
Hmm.
It's one of the only two times I've ever done that. And by the end of the debate, it felt like more like a panel than a debate. So like me and Josh went in there to hang out after the debate, and one of the guys came in and we were talking about gun control
Hmm.
and how it had been successful in Australia. And his argument was that because we have a long border with Mexico, Mexico would be supplying us with all of the guns. And right now there's trucks loaded with with guns
Jesus
and drugs just
Christ.
coming over the border.
No. Like, that's like, we supply the guns down there. Like, the
Yeah.
guns in Mexico are all made here because we make
Mhm.
guns. It's like one of the and I'm a gun guy.
It was pretty bad. We'll
Like,
have
I'm
to
I'm
talk guns sometime.
yeah.
I think I told you about my various gun theories that are mostly concocted to piss off everyone at once.
Here and there. Like, I'm literally sitting, as we're talking, in front of about 100 uh, empty 308 cases that I have to reload.
Mhm.
So that shows you kind of. I mean, but at the same time, this is off topic, but like guns are killing more kids than car accidents in this country. So we really need to do
Yeah.
something, both governmentally and culturally about that. But that's a whole
Yeah,
bag of
that's a
worms.
whole other thing. But and actually, James had asked me to do a gun debate against JF.
Yeah, it's a two.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
I would have been up to under normal circumstances.
It's kind of in bad taste right now, I think.
I think it's extremely bad taste. Dude, I saw
I saw the thing too. Yeah.
Yeah, the coffins for the kids
Yeah,
that the
got
one
me.
guy was making, and it was just harrowing. Like, I'm a parent, and also I'm a Buddhist, and normally when I get hit with a wave of emotion, I can just let it pass.
Yeah.
Which is why a lot of people will say, like, how do you remain so calm in the debates? I'm like, Buddhism. But like, oh, that just that hollowed me out. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too into that, but I would agree that right away is in kind of bad taste.
Yeah.
And I remember one of my favorite books, American Gods, which
book.
if you've only seen the TV series, read the book. It's so much better. But Neil Gaiman's American Gods. Oh shit. Actually,
there it
here
is.
we go. And not only do I have the book, but boom, signed.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. I've met him twice now. He's a really cool guy. So like American Gods is one of my favorite books, but towards the end, like, Gaiman is talking about, like, because there's this big, the story is about a conflict between the new American gods that are television, radio, internet, cars, and like the old gods, Odin, Loki, the Chernobog, and like all of these gods from Europe that were brought over to the United States, essentially. And like, Gaiman says at one point, he talked about the car gods, like when they're lined up, like getting ready to have their big, like, Avengers battle royale. And he talked about them having like basically like teeth that looked like Jaws and Bond, in James Bond, and the blood covered gloves, recipients of a level of human sacrifice never before seen on Earth. Because of all the people that die in car accidents, they are sacrificed to the car gods. And I sort of realized, like, because these kids keep getting killed, and like, essentially, if we continue to not do anything about guns, we have to make ourselves comfortable with essentially giving a human sacrifice of our children to the Second Amendment.
Second Amendment,
yeah, the Second Amendment. And I would prefer not to do that if possible.
please.
Yeah, but I don't know. We can definitely get into that in a longer thing.
Yeah.
So let's jump back onto the debate. So we've gone through the opening statements. Did you think Javier scored any major points in his rebuttal, or was it just so all over the place that it wound up not being effective?
I don't think it's that it was all over the place. I think that the arguments are kind of trite and manufactured on their face, and I think that kind of got exposed in this talk. Because look, if you go back in history, and I'm a history nerd, in like the 1840s, 1850s, like in this country, people are going to think this is crazy. Like abortion was like widespread in this country.
Yep.
The act of abortion is something like 4,000 to 6,000 years old in recorded history. The Romans were doing it. The ancient Chinese were doing it. Everybody's been doing it since it's been a thing. Since pregnancy has been a thing and medicine's been a thing. The pro-life movement in this country is only really kind of extant after Roe, and
hang on. There is that, but also, so this is interesting, and I brought it up in the debate.
Yeah.
So the first laws regulating abortion in American history were up in like Massachusetts in 1821.
Yeah.
And those were not outlawing abortion. It was just, the circumstances under which you can have them. Abortion before the quickening, the Highlander reference.
There can be only one.
Yeah, the quickening is the first moment that the woman feels the baby move inside her. That is so. Abortion before the quickening was legal until 1860, I believe, or maybe it was 1850. It was 1850 or 1860. And if you look, and correlation is not causation, but there wasn't really a push to ban abortions in the United States until women started demanding the right to vote. So in a lot of ways, the first abortion laws were not so much about protecting the life of the child. They were specifically about keeping women in line and controlling their reproductive process. So, yeah, I mean, and that did come up in the debate, but yeah, abortion is not actually like tradition in the United States. The tradition is to allow it, and the pro-life movement has kind of come in and grabbed onto it, and people just assume that it's tradition when frankly it's not.
Well, our attention spans are so short that we think that anything that's like more than 5 or 6 years old is a deep, like rooted American tradition at this point. So the pro-life movement can take advantage of that. Kind of something that I noticed about their arguments, especially on Kay's side. Kay argued that she's like a social progressive and seems like a pretty decent person from her Twitter feed. So I don't want to say that she's a bad person. But Javier too, I think you have to look at the consequences and like realpolitik of the results of their activism, right? And the results of their activism on the pro-life side isn't fewer abortions. Abortion in this country actually went down significantly after Roe because it was legal and accessible, and kind of there wasn't a black market for it. It's a weird sociological thing that happens. It's happened in other countries that have legalized it too. Catholic Ireland has basically legalized it at this point. El Salvador and Brazil are kind of on that track if they're not there already. I'm not as familiar with their laws, but I know it's been a big issue down there with a black market for abortion-inducing drugs and black market abortions in general. But the result of pro-life movements is driving women seeking healthcare underground. And it's the elimination of the civil liberty. And all of their arguments that they made in this entire debate, right? If you really believe that abortion is a moral ill, you can reach out to pregnant people and make that argument to them and have them not get an abortion without outlawing it and stripping people of their civil liberties.
Yeah, and giving the state the right to use violence to force an unwilling woman to carry a child to term.
Right.
Because that's really what this was about. And it's really funny that Javier made the argument that he was playing it safe by outlawing abortion, which is funny because when I first started arguing about abortion, like I was probably 18 years old, one of the first arguments that I made was that, okay, you've got a living, breathing woman right here, and then you've got a fetus, and we don't really know if the fetus is a person. So we should err on the side of caution and give and within the conflict between the woman and the fetus, you got to let the woman win. So that was one of my earliest arguments on it. It's got some problems. I felt like I'm happy that my rhetorical skills on it have come a long way since 18-year-old Brent was yelling at people on the internet about, well, let's face it, like 50% of my posts around that time were how great the Iraq war was going to be.
Oh, Jesus. It wasn't.
No, it was not. And guys, if you're wondering why Brent is no longer a young Republican, it's that. And also,
because you're not young anymore.
Yeah, it was the disaster of Iraq coupled with just the anti-gay stuff in like the early 2000s.
Yeah, and you're not young anymore.
Yeah, correct. I'm very, very old. Though Josh, I love this because he says I look exactly the same. When we first met. It's like, how did you figure that out? I had to be, well, I'm a Dracula.
Yeah, but sorry, were you saying
no, just really quickly, I want to get this out of here. So Texas White Panther, thank you for coming in. I really appreciate the super chat, and I really appreciate like all your interaction with the channel. You've always got like good takes and stuff. So he says, I live close to Uvalade. Is that how you say it?
I think I don't know.
Yeah. And there was there last weekend. Holy shit. Defunding the police seems popular even among older whites, at least in the Uvalde PD Facebook page. Yeah, I got to tell you, man, the very fact that the police officers were there and even engaged with him, but were afraid to enter the building and try to save those kids, this horrifying. And, I've
Fucking
maintained.
cowards.
Say what?
Fucking cowards.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Absolutely. No, you're 100% right. That's fucking cowardice. And it's interesting. One of the things that I was thinking about with regard to the state and the military and how we should handle things if we are to have such institutions, which I don't think we should. I am very attracted to the idea of the warrior poet. But one of the things that I think overwhelmingly what needs to be instilled in police, especially, they need to be willing to lay down their lives to protect the public. That needs to be their primary goal. We need to see, like, it's awful if an officer dies trying to save someone. I feel bad for them. I feel bad for their family. But ultimately, we give them so much power. That's the flip side of it. That's the responsibility. And so, like, if a mass shooting happens and you're too scared to go in and try to stop it, man, fuck you. Like, you're an absolute disgrace. And that was even one of the worst things about it, because, like, the right wing was saying, like, we need armed people in the school. We need armed police officers. And as we can see, it doesn't work. And no. I think even I came back to this to pull it back into the debate, the fact that the state can't protect us from terrorists or mass shooters. I hit that point like quite a few times.
Yeah, you're right. And the result of pro-life activism in this country, and I'm kind of trying to save my bile for those cowardly motherfuckers. But the result of pro-life activism now is that we're seeing in states like Louisiana, failed right-wing legislatures are basically outlawing, like, IUDs. They're outlawing the Plan B pill. They're saying, like, human life begins at the moment of conception, which is, like, an absurd idea that hasn't ever been extant in human history. If you're pro-life and you want people to have fewer abortions, there are ways to do that. And I think hitting on eliminating poverty, increasing access to birth control, having a healthcare system that's actually like healthcare for women in this country is the way to do that. The way not to do that is to subject overwhelmingly poor women who can't afford children or can't afford access to healthcare to put them through the healthcare system in this country that has the worst infant mortality of any developed country in the world, and has worse infant mortality than several developing countries. Cuba beats us handily on infant mortality. Every country in Europe beats us on infant mortality. Several other developing countries beat us on infant mortality. I haven't looked at the list today, but it's a pathetic thing. Yeah. And putting women through that meat grinder isn't the solution to that. We also lead the world, curiously, in postpartum deaths. From medical complications, because women have to go back to work so fast because they can't afford childcare rent or the medical bills. So
that happened to me.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, not the death part, but
yeah, hopefully. Clearly.
And we were luckier than most. So, me and my wife, like, Gavin was born, and he was born 6 weeks early, and he was in the NICU for 10 days. We were very, very lucky that we had good insurance at this time, because actually we were after he was born, we were sent a bill that was addressed to Gavin, like, to my son, who was just a day old, for $76,000.
I hate to say it, that's low.
Yeah, so charging. Well, they were only charging him for his own birth. They hadn't gotten to the 10 days in the NICU, and we managed to get that cleared up because I'm insanely good at paperwork. But but and something similar had happened to another friend of mine, a woman named Molly Neffel, who, by the way, has been on a couple of really interesting. Like, she's been on some fun comedies as like a background character. I think she had a line in Kimmy Schmidt, but her baby was born around the same time, and a similar situation happened where she had insurance, but they still tried to charge her baby. And so you got to think what wound up happening with us was, we brought Gavin home. She had 3 months maternity leave, which is more than most. And we got to the end of the maternity leave, and it was just like, we couldn't justify her going back to work and getting a babysitter to spend most of their time with our son, who, was still severely underweight. He was doing better every single day, but, he needed his mom. And so, ultimately I had to say, all right, well, I'll take care of all of the bills, and I went and worked. I spoke with my company at the time and told them I need to make exactly this much money or more, or I can't stay in the city. They said they'd pay me it. Then they didn't. So I was forced out of the city. And it was good because it was forced out like right before COVID.
Exiled.
Yeah. But you got to think, people who don't have the advantages that we had, people who don't have jobs that give them health care, or they give them health care, but it's garbage health care that's not even worth taking. People that don't have a family support system to get them out of that situation, they just wind up going further and further into debt. I remember there's one woman I talked to at a company I worked for briefly. She was like, oh yeah, I had my child, it would cost me $8,000. And I'm like, $8,000 to have a child. And, I feel like in a weird way, this pro-life movement that is working to, put in mandatory forced pregnancy, because that's really what it is. That's it's, and Kay didn't want to do this, but it seems like what they're trying to do is, if we get conspiratorial about it, it's up the population in the United States and up the native population, because you have to grow the economy. The best way to grow the economy is to grow the population, and the right wing, the best way to grow the population is to allow people to emigrate to your country. If you're in a first world country, the more immigration you have, legal and illegal, all of it is like really helpful economically. So if you got these hardliners that, are freaked out about changing demographics, and that's the nice way of putting it, like they're going to be looking for another way to boost the economy. And oh my, let's just force women to have children.
Well, the only problem with that is that a lot of the people who have abortions in this country are people of color, are women of color specifically, obviously. But I think it's more of a thing to punish those communities, because they're going to be legally punished when they seek basic health care at this point. You can also see how like the pro-life movement has been tied to also anti-integration movements. Like they kind of morphed into one thing after Roe. Religious institutions that didn't want to integrate started using like women's healthcare as an excuse rather than racial politics as an excuse in the late 60s and the 70s too. So there's that aspect of it. The idea that our population is going to collapse is absurd. There's an awful book that came out, I think, last year called A Billion Americans, where this guy argued that we need 1 billion Americans in this country, which would more than triple our population, I believe, at this point.
I don't even like it. I don't even like the people around. No, that's not. I actually do like my neighbors. I don't like anybody but my neighbors.
Well, his specific argument was that we needed to compete with China. But if you look at the population ratio between us and China, China's population in 45 and our population in 45, which is the metric that I used, it's almost the same ratio now that it was back then. You don't need like this mass population increase. But what the right wing does need is a group of people to scapegoat. And I think what we're going to be seeing, especially in the next few months when Roe's probably going to be overturned, barring a legal miracle, is that we're going to see the right wing use these laws to prosecute and jail people. I think a lot of those people that are jailed are going to be people of color, um, based on this law, and you're going to see a lot of well-meaning people trying to put their lives and livelihood on the line against these laws that are designed to financially ruin people who provide women with healthcare. And
Yeah.
that's the result of this pro-life activism. If the result of the pro-life activism, and I don't know Kay very well, it might be the result of her activism specifically, but if the result of your activism is incarceration, black market healthcare, the elimination of civil liberties, mass elimination of civil liberties, if you read the Alito decision, uh, and death, frankly, from our healthcare system, uh, your activism isn't really pro-life. And if your activism, like Javier's, includes eliminating social safety net programs, getting the government out of our lives, quote unquote, cutting people off from, like, welfare, cutting people off from social safety net programs in general, eliminating. He specifically actually repeated the myth of the welfare queen, where people are having a bunch of kids to get on welfare, which has been debunked since the 1980s when Reagan made it up.
It's so dumb.
It,
Like,
it's
it is so
incredibly dumb.
dumb. Like, if you okay, so I feel like the people that fall for that usually just don't have kids because they don't understand like how much work you have to put into children. Like, and the idea of like one woman just having a whole bunch of kids to collect a check, like, oh my god, just
Well,
pulling your damn hair out.
it's also people who've never been really poor. You
Mhm.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think Simone Weil was the philosopher that kind of got a good clap back at Simone de Beauvoir, who was not making the welfare queen argument, but she was making an argument about socialism. And Simone Weil looked at de Beauvoir and goes like, that's an argument of somebody who's never actually been hungry in their life. And I feel like that's kind of the modern right. And it's a lot of people who've never really been hungry. And I don't mean that metaphorically, I mean that literally.
Yeah.
Because the United States is also not very food secure. Sorry to kind of be a doomer.
It's not, and we waste 50% of the food that we, harvest.
Well, I think it's also
Um,
14% of the population is on SNAP, which is food stamps right now.
mhm. Yeah, and this was the weirdest thing with SNAP and food stamps because like they get so mad about this, and it's like, okay, where does that money go? What happens when you give food stamps to a poor family? Well, they go pay for stuff at the stores, which means that is just money that is being handed over to capitalists.
But I
Like
saw
it,
them get lobster once.
say what?
But I saw them get lobster once.
Yes, they got lobster one time. That is always so fucking weird. Like, a lot of these people claim to be like anti-authoritarians,
Hmm.
and then they want to go in and like monitor and make sure you're getting crappy food with your with your SNAP benefits. Um, ugh, it- and that was one of the things with. I thought I had a good gotcha here. I had to be careful with it, but
Yeah.
he mentioned in his opening statement was a 4-time convicted felon. And clearly it seems that he's turned his life around.
Good for
But
him.
then when he came in, it was like, my mom was on welfare, and nothing bad happened to me, and I was just like, you went to jail 4 times.
Yeah, yeah, and we're obviously not saying that Javier shouldn't have existed, but we are
Yeah,
saying that the life that he was thrown into was a rough one.
yeah.
Uh,
He drew a difficult hand. His karma was particularly difficult for dealing with, and it looks like he's managed to overcome a lot of it, which I'm happy about. Yeah, and obviously, you wouldn't. I'm because he actually responded to that. He was like, "Well, just because somebody is born into hard situations, does that mean they shouldn't live?" And I'm like, "No, not at all." But the argument there was we were talking about whether it was important or not to, provide financial support for people who are having babies that can't afford them. And I think there's only one answer to that, and it's give them the support that they need, because it's worse across the board in every other way.
right, and one of the other arguments that was interesting to me was they kept making the argument that the fetus has genetic code, right?
Oh yeah, I remember that, and I think that was actually wrong.
Uh, yeah, but what's interesting to me about that is, and I told that story at the beginning for a reason, is all those bugs that I'm getting rid of on my lumber all have genetic codes. The virus that I had a couple weeks ago had a genetic code. The bacteria that I disinfect on my desk with these wonderful bleach wipes, they all have genetic codes, but we don't value those existences. Uh, a fetus technically, yes, it's human cells, but like it's about as sentient and human as the zit that you pop in the mirror in the morning. You don't have one in case you're paranoid, but it's obviously not the same as a developed human life. And I think arguing that it has a genetic code is just really weird. And the other weird one that I think Javier said it, because I think Kay is too smart to say this, is that the option should be there to remove the fetus and put it in an artificial womb and then like birth it. Like the technology for that doesn't exist and won't exist for.
Yeah. I mean, Kay said that in the debate, I don't know if she was correct. She did say that like they're testing prototypes of that now.
Okay.
Do you know what really would confuse me about this though?
Yeah.
Okay, this is an extrapolation. I don't know that this is happening. I don't know that it's intentional. So just take it with like all the salt that you can. But if you get a generation of babies who are, adopted out, and one of the things that my wife and I looked into, because we were like, well, maybe it's not safe to get pregnant, so maybe we could adopt a baby. It's insanely expensive.
Yeah.
So really, like these adoption, there's going to be like this whole generation of unwanted kids that will then be adopted. And I suspect a lot of the places doing the adoption will be like far right churches and far right church members. And it seems like almost like they're trying to do the quiverful thing and like essentially outbreed their political enemies. And then, you add in all of these kids that they're indoctrinating. Like there's definitely some power in shaping the way an entire generation of children grow up as opposed to their parents. And that may, again, I don't know if they actually think about this, but that may be sort of the key to why. So when I did, and you guys can find this when I did my stream on like Ruth Bader Ginsburg, is dead. What do we do now? And I said, I don't believe that the right will ever actually outlaw abortion because one, they don't actually care. It has nothing to do with lives. These people are monsters and have no soul. What it has to do with, again, is exercising power over women. So I assumed that essentially what was happening was that they would constantly trot out the specter of overturning Roe v. Wade and then always fail to at the last minute, like because the last couple of times, like conservative judges broke the balance. As soon as they got in, they went and upheld Roe v. Wade. So my thought on it was this: we've got to save the babies is a way to control the people who vote for them and to energize them and to get them out. Because if you believe these things are actual people, you'll forgive anything that the Republican Party does if, just so long as they try to save the babies. So now if they overturn that, they're going to lose that whip. But, thinking long term, if the far right controls the development of an entire generation of children, because they're the only ones with the money and the institutional power to adopt these babies. I'm deeply afraid of how they will twist those people to their ends. Again, I don't know that anybody's thinking about this. This would be an incredibly long-term goal. In fact, I think it's kind of a stupid plan because of all the things that can go wrong, but it's still a thought that occurs. Does it make sense?
It didn't work out for Ceausescu, so I'll just point. I don't know if you know that one.
Oh, yeah, in Romania.
Yeah, well, because he actually got executed by those same babies. When they grew.
Yeah, well, it turns out you raise a generation of pissed off, unwanted children. They will go and overthrow you. And, I think the book Freakonomics made an argument about that.
Well, also, I don't think that the right wing has the wherewithal to actually adopt those kids because they've had this adoption movement, adoption as an alternative to abortion for as long as I've been alive, at least. And they don't really do it because there's thousands and thousands of kids in our foster care system now. I think it's just an article of faith at this point for their voters. And I think they can actually maintain that whip because now if they ban abortion, and unfortunately, it looks like when they retake both houses of Congress this fall, and then maybe the presidency in 2024, if they ban it federally, they can make the argument you have to keep electing us, or they're going to legalize abortion again, and you're going to lose all this progress that we've made. I doubt that they're going. The quiverful movement is a thing, but I doubt you're going to see like mass adoptions by right wing groups because, frankly, they're selfish people and they don't want to spend
That
the
is
money
a
to
good
raise a
point.
kid. Uh,
It's weird also because things that have happened with orphans traditionally in the United States. So one of the things that's so frustrating about arguing with ANCAPs is all of their new ideas have actually already happened. They just don't know enough about history.
yeah,
So private police, yeah, that was the Boston police, and we changed that because it was garbage.
the Romans tried it, man.
Say
Like,
what?
the Romans did it.
Yeah.
Like,
And it was garbage. It's
yeah, it was
garbage
absolute
every
garbage.
time.
Yeah,
But like the one of the other things that they said was like Murray Rothbard is like, well, a free society will have a flourishing free market in children.
yeah.
And we had that. And it led to this woman stealing like 5,000 babies to resell them.
Are you talking about the Orphan Train?
Well, no. Okay, so then there was also the Orphan Train.
Yeah.
But no, yeah. Oh, the Orphan Train was a new kind of fucked up because, yeah. All right. So the idea there was you take the. Well, Bobby, do you want to tell people about this? Or
Well,
should I?
as authentic New York City street trash myself, I can do that. So New York City had a plethora of children running around. I believe this was in the mid 1800s, mostly immigrants and people that the hoity-toity folks didn't quite like. So this group of people basically founded this orphan train, and the idea was that they would scoop up all these malnourished orphans and send them out to the Midwest and have them be adopted by good farming families. And that sounds kind of okay on paper, but really what happened is they just swept the street for children, scooped them up, put them on these trains, and sold them as farm labor in the Midwest.
Yep. And they were treated a lot of the time as slaves.
Well, they were resold like multiple times to multiple different farms in a lot of different cases. And as we're talking about that, and as we're talking about the result of right wing actual activism, the actual physical results of it is that now Fox News is pushing for a reduction of child labor laws. So
Oh God.
so you're gonna see like what's old is new again, um, with the results of this activism. So
Time
like
is a flat circle.
it is, it really is, and like I was exposed to a bunch of toxic chemicals in the army, so I might not live to see it, but like you're going to see this country over the next few years probably get a lot worse. And I hate to be the bearer of bad news on that, but we have to start fighting now. Really, we should have been fighting like when I was born, like 30 some odd years ago, but we really have to fight like hell, and we're going to have to fight like hell for the next few decades because of the results of the activism, maybe well intentioned in the case of Kay, maybe even well intentioned in the case of Javier, but the results of their activism, we're going to have to fight like hell to get back to where we were in like 1965 for the rest of our adult lives.
Yeah, it's incredibly frustrating. And for people who are, by the way, I just wanted to bring this up from Texan White Panther.
Sure.
So I just applied for SNAP benefits today. Great. It's interesting. So SNAP, one of the first things that they did in like the early theater groups that I was hired onto, because the groups did not pay enough, they would teach us how to get on food stamps.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So
Walmart does that too.
yeah. Say what?
Walmart does that too.
Oh god. I mean, and if it's there, use it. There was a time early on when I was first in New York City. I went through a period of a couple of months unemployment, and my mother felt that you should not be on unemployment unless you were injured, like you physically couldn't work, otherwise you must work all the time.
Yeah.
And that's not what unemployment is for. Unemployment insurance specifically is for people who work but then like go through a period of unemployment. So there was one time that I just chose not to claim unemployment as a result of what my mother had said. And I remember when I got rehired, I was talking to the HR person at my company, and they're like, "Wow, you must have a ton of money saved." And I'm like, well, "No, I'm poor as all hell." And they're like, well, "Then why didn't you claim it?" So yeah, benefits, the small amount of benefits that are there, absolutely everyone. If you qualify, use them. There's no shame in it whatsoever.
Yeah, I caught I'm on VA disability, in addition to other stuff that I'm doing now, but, I got hell for that when I got out of the military, but, claim everything you can, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like, well, I don't want to get into a big thing
Yeah,
about
sorry.
that. But, and by the way, the woman who stole the 5,000 babies, her name is Georgia Tann.
Oh, yeah, okay, I know this
Georgia,
one.
like the state, and then Tann, Tann. You can find out about her. Like, she was literally like stealing babies off the street to resell, like from homes that wanted them. Because obviously, when you have a market for something,
Mm.
and you don't have the supply that you need, people are gonna go out and try to find the supply. It's one of the reasons why you don't want to start selling kidneys without like very carefully,
Well
managing the actual sale of the kidneys.
well,
So
not kidneys, but I, ended my military career, doing UN peacekeeping work, mostly in Africa, and just this last year, they actually busted a baby farm in Nigeria that was literally, like, impregnating women to sell the babies.
whoa.
Yeah, so,
Holy
like, if
shit.
you wanna see how bad it can get, you look at, like, the developing world where there isn't a lot of, like, state authority or, like, social, cohesion anymore.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the state authority with the state
Social
authority being
cohesion, but you're an
gone, but
anarchist, but
I do
yeah.
have a problem with the social cohesion.
State
Honestly,
authority, but no cohesion.
yeah.
Yeah, is what you just said, just so you know.
Yeah.
Clipping it.
Oh, it's all right. I get accused of not being an anarchist like once a day, usually from other anarchists, because that's all we do. It's like being like I guarantee, like I've got this Ukraine thing, which my mom actually made for me. Like she did blown glass herself, which is why I'm wearing it, because she
Looks
put a lot
good.
of effort into it. Yeah, it's got a sunflower on the back, clasp on the back. So like there will be people that are like, "Hey, you're wearing a Ukraine flag. You're not an anarchist. I'm an anarchist." I'm just like, "Oh." And then I even had people get mad at me for the Nestor Makhno shirt. One of the most famous anarchists in history, and they're like,
Yeah. Leftist infighting.
Ukraine has further driven the left insane. And it's
I
particular. Say what?
sorry. If you're siding with a fascist Russian state, invading and trying to subjugate and colonize a people, you're not a leftist. Uh,
Yeah.
sorry.
No,
Sorry.
I agree. There's like I was learning a little bit more about the conflict, and obviously, there's more layers to this. For instance, Russia essentially depending upon the sales of its fossil fuels and possibly getting pushed out of the market by former Soviet states, building pipelines and shipping via, clearly like the country has some financial objectives that are being undermined. I think they just completed a major pipeline from like Kazakhstan or something to Europe. So you can maybe see why the Russians are, leery, particularly if their oil profits are totally undercut by these other countries, and feeling like they need to expand and prevent that from happening. But you don't start a war with your immediate neighbor where you drive what was 5 million now people from their homes, and you're running around with like mobile cremation units to destroy the bodies of civilians that you kill. Like, holy shit, man. Like there are ways you can respond to being squeezed out of a market that don't involve a freaking
Murdering
civil
people.
war
Yeah.
and threatening to nuke everyone if they do anything about it.
Yeah, it's rough.
Yeah.
But there's another result of right wing activism, because the Putin strain of fascism is sponsored by the Orthodox Church, which made a devil's bargain with him to get their social priorities enforced on the Russian people after the wall came down. And now we're seeing the result of that, like perhaps well-meaning moral activism on the part of the Russian Orthodox Church, which I'm giving them way too much credit,
Yeah.
is the result of that is like oppressed LGBTQ people in Russia, a fascist police state, controlling thermonuclear weapons, which is never good. Multiple wars that he started, war crimes, thousands and thousands of Russian conscripts going to their deaths for no reason, and Ukraine being immiserated and the mass slaughter of civilians. So you can't let the right wing have power anywhere.
Because when they have power, they do shit like this.
Exactly correct.
Yeah. It's. I tend to be very careful with dropping the fascist line.
I am too, but
do
it's
agree
accurate.
that there's a lot that Putin fits
Yeah.
with regard to that. It's very disturbing. And prior to the invasion, I was tended to be like, oh, let the guy, I don't trust the guy. I don't like the guy, but maybe we shouldn't be rattling our sabers at him because, war is always bad. And, that's the only other country with nuclear strike capabilities. But, shown via the invasion of Ukraine, he's got no compunctions. I think that's the word, about like basically about violating every single norm that relates to post Westphalian sovereignty. Like,
you've been hanging around me for a while.
It's from a World War III, so holy shit.
Yeah, it's rough because he has thermonuclear weapons, so you can't do like a lot about it. And but you see the result of that is that like the cultural conservative people in Russia are allying with that movement, and they're, if anything, they're happy that Putin's in charge because gay marriage is basically illegal. Gays have been LGBTQ people have been driven back into the closet. I'm not sure what Russian laws on abortion are off the top of my head, but I'm going to imagine they're pretty strict at this point.
Yeah. The one good thing about Russian laws with regard to pregnancy is that the mother, if you have a baby in Russia, you have mandatory 2 years paid maternity leave.
That's good.
Which is covered by the. Now you have to be a Russian citizen, to get that. But
so the Russians are better at us.
Yeah, they are better than us at that. And I wouldn't be surprised if even with their kind of garbage technology at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if they had a lower infant and mother mortality rate than we do.
The problem is that they lie a lot, so it's kind of hard to tell.
Yeah, which that's another thing. I mean, they did it before they were fascist. Yeah, that's like another thing about that. Like, I was talking today with somebody because I don't know if you know, Bobby, but the Mises Caucus took over the Libertarian Party.
Took over? They've been quoting Mises since I've been alive, brother.
Yeah, but so they're quoting Mises, who, by the way, was a supporter of fascism, worked for the fascist government of Austria, and praised fascism as the savior of Europe. Now he did go on to say, if we keep doing this fascist shit, it's like a fatal error, which he's right about. But
one thing that people always forget is that right after he wrote that, he also joined the Fatherland Front in Austria and worked for the Austrian fascist government as an economics minister enthusiastically.
Oh yeah, I thought it was beforehand, so it's good to know it was after. Thank you for pointing that out. That's another thing I should know about the fucking fascists.
Yeah.
But anyway, the Mises Caucus, I honestly think the Mises Caucus is probably worse than Mises himself.
Jesus.
They recently, so it used to say in the Libertarian Party's constitution, that bigotry, specifically bigotry, was irrational and repugnant. And the Mises just couldn't have that, so they took it down and they replaced it with, like, we support everyone's rights regardless of their race, creed, whatever, which is horrible. And it sounds good on the surface, but if you know how hard the fascists have been working to try to infiltrate the Libertarian Party and take it over, because that's what fascists do. They tried it with the punk scene and partially succeeded. They tried it with the metal scene, partially succeeded. They did it with 4chan, completely succeeded. And you see what they've done with 4chan. They've driven mass shooters. I think Tree of Life shooter.
It's harder to name one that wasn't influenced by them at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's stochastic terrorism is what they are looking to do, and they are going to use the Libertarian Party to do that if they're able to take over. And their entry point is this Mises Caucus. So what's going to happen is that you're going to have, when the fascists get in, they're going to immediately, and they're already in, but they're going to immediately start making the environment as toxic as possible to drive as many people who are more social justice minded out of the Libertarian Party. Anyone that tries to stand up to them, they're going to accuse of anti-white racism. And they're going to appeal to that. Instead of denouncing bigotry, suddenly now you are denouncing me because I'm white. How dare you, sir? If Martin Luther King were alive, like that's how they're going to respond. These people don't believe in anything, and they will say whatever they want, that can gain them power in the moment, because fascism is inherently anti-rational and inherently opportunist. There are three things that you can never have fascism without, and it's anti-rationality. It is it's anti-rationality. It is murder, like violence. They are always violent. Even non-violent fascists contribute to a movement that at its core is violent. And then dropped out of my head. I'll remember it in a second. But essentially what I'm saying here is opportunistic. That was the last thing. They are always politically opportunistic, and they lie as compulsively. They lie as a tactic, and honestly, they kind of take a lot of joy in specifically lying and not telling the truth in order to advance their political goals. I think just going back to the shooter, over the last couple of days, immediately after that, some fascists went and photoshopped him with a trans woman or non-binary person that looked kind of like him, and put it out that he was this trans shooter.
It was Candace Owens who did that.
Yeah. Oh, Candace Owens did that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, figures. And there's a couple of groups that tolerate fascists that I keep an eye on. And the glee that these people had, knowing that they were lying, but were still spreading it, was just unconscionable.
Yeah. And that's the result of conservative social movements allying with the far right to get their agendas passed. And we're seeing we're seeing the mid stage, frankly, of that in this country right now with things like the pro-life movement, where it's kind of unsatisfying if you're making and I respect that this kind of about them, is that if you're making a moral argument and you really believe that you're trying to save human lives, and it doesn't work 100% of the time, it's frustrating, and there is the temptation to just enforce your moral will on people through the law. But we see the material results of that are horrific and much less preferable to the state of affairs that we have now. I mean, I grew up Catholic, and to an extent, I do see the tragedy of every time there's an abortion, but I
grew up Catholic as well. And by the way, I thought your dad was in a cult.
He is.
Was that after he was Catholic?
Yeah. Okay. Well, no, cult. Catholic. Well.
You don't have to go into details.
Italian New York street trash, like his son. Catholic, Woodstock, cult, Catholic again, son, drug problem, cult again. So it's a interesting timeline.
A lot of people who have issues with addiction wind up in cults, or and sometimes new religious movements and stuff. I mean, Soka Gakkai isn't a cult. Though at one point, it was funny because I got invited to a young leadership retreat and in the woods, in the mountains. And I was basically we were all sitting around the fire after a day of canoe races and sumo wrestling and capture the flag, and the leaders were there, and they were like, hey, so we don't want there to be any doubt, so ask whatever questions that you want to. And I was sitting there, and I'm like, hey, I got a question. Did I join a cult? And I phrased it more politely than that, but that's a funny way to put it. But they basically said, well, No. But like their sort of definition for a cult, they said essentially the purpose of a cult is to, override the will and the personhood of the people in the cult and turn them towards serving the cult. Whereas what they were doing essentially was working like that. Soka Gakkai as an organization is supposed to serve the members, and if it's the member not serving the members, they absolutely should leave or do something to change that. So then the leaders, so you haven't joined a cult. You have joined the best organization in the world. And I'm like, that's exactly what a cult would say. And he said, yes, but it's also exactly what the best organization in the world would say.
You were a lot more diplomatic about that than me, because we had a Bible cult outside of Fort Stewart where I was stationed that was like preying on soldiers to basically leech money off of them. And I was really, really tired one day because I'd worked like 17 hours, and I'm in the parking lot where I lived, and one of them was like looking for one of the members, and he like drives by me, and he opens his window and he goes like, "Hey man, do you love Jesus?" And I knew immediately that he was one of the cult members, and I looked up at him and I'm like, "Your God does not live here, priest." He's like,
oh, never mind. In high school, I did something similar. So I had a martial arts class in the gym, like in the morning. It was when I first really got into martial arts. And I got there before school. And the school that I was in like, bumfuck nowhere, Kentucky. And like, this was a town that had like the 10 Commandments at the school, at the state house, and would allow religious groups to come in and witness to children, constantly, and would have like Christian themed mandatory assemblies you had to attend. And one time we made national news because my art teacher had a dream that God told her to ban Harry Potter, and she tried to set up like a committee to oversee every book in the school and remove the ones that don't allow God to enter the hearts and minds of the students.
Hey, to be fair, Harry Potter kind of sucks. So.
Yeah. Who saw that face heel turn? Yeah, so like I remember I'm walking across the gym floor at this point. I got my martial arts bag and I'm going to the lockers to change, and there's like a prayer group, an evangelical prayer group, and the guy is talking to him, and I overhear him, and it's like, now we all know someone who's not walking in the light of God. And I was like, raised my hand, walked behind him. Got some laughs, which was good. But like, yeah, I've always been a little heathen when it comes to that crap. So by the way, just to put this back on track, because we did jump into the whole cult thing. And by the way, guys, be careful. Leftist organizations can also be cults.
Yes.
And probably most of them are. But like, to bring this back, there were some, to the abortion topic. There were some arguments that I made that I have developed, and I haven't I've tried them in like, reply guy stuff, and they tend to be pretty effective, but I didn't know how they would work against a actually like an actual pro-life activist. But I was pretty pleasantly surprised. One of the arguments that I made was, none of you people actually believe that this is a baby. Right. Like you say you do, you may think you do, and you may think that you may feel good for you to say that it's murder, but the United States has had over 8 million abortions, and that was like 10, 20 years ago. So, the only people that actually believe this is a baby and believe this is murder, they're in jail for terrorism at this point. Or at most, they are a total pacifist. They're giving Tolstoy a run for his money. Because like, essentially what we got there is like fucking Octo Hitler. Like, and you don't respond to Octo Hitler by peacefully protesting and like telling people they're going to hell and holding up a sign. It's Octo Hitler.
Well, now, the problem is that we're seeing that movement not being peaceful anymore. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah. Oh, and they're going in that direction. They absolutely are, the crazier ones. But my point is that if we are to be charitable, the ones who are moving in that direction are the only ones that actually believe this insane thing that a fetus is the same thing as a baby.
Right.
and it's another argument, by the way, was one that I cribbed from Ben Burgess that I thought was really good, is that the fetus does not have a thalamus until 26 weeks, and it's really not working until 28 weeks. And before that, it can't feel pain, it can't feel pleasure, it has no consciousness whatsoever. It is much closer to a tree or an acorn than a human. You really need the thalamus. So if we are going to draw a line at which human personhood begins, I would say that you should draw it at 26, 28 weeks, something in that range, as opposed to the moment of conception. Because I mean, they say it's like the moment of conception, but as I brought up in the debate, and this is a difficult and dangerous argument to use, but like when you're talking about a process and you're trying to indicate like where the process begins, it's always arbitrary. Even when we were talking about something like life, like you could say, oh, well, the sperm hits the egg, you wait long enough, that will grow into a person, therefore life begins there. Okay, I can see why you're thinking that, but also any other point in the chain of causation has exactly the same worth to it as that. You could just as easily say life of the baby begins when the parents meet, or when the grandparents meet, or when the freaking first fish crawls out of the ocean. You are pointing to an arbitrary point within the process, and as the present is always, if we are to think linearly, the result of the past, then there isn't actually any separation. We mentally separate these events for ease, but in actual objective reality, it is just one process, which probably has no beginning or end at any point. And, we just draw these things because they're useful. So that was one of the arguments I made. Again, I worry about it because it's very counterintuitive, but also like, I really want people to think. So I wanted to make sure to get that out there. So of those three arguments, which one did you think was the strongest, and where did you think I was the weakest?
I think the causation one was really good. Yeah,
Okay,
you could
excellent.
if you go hard enough on that one, it's like, well, when Aurelian of Rome resettled my ancestors in Gaul, that's when life began.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's when I was born.
the
It's
only
Mhm.
oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, yeah, go. I was just going to say it's funny because my son has become such a big part of me and my wife's life at this point. I was saying to her, we were looking at photos of our wedding, and I was like, I feel like he was there. Like he wasn't, but in a way he was, because the process that eventually resulted in him was happening in that awesome wedding. But like, yeah, it was such a big thing, my son growing out of this world. It really feels like his presence extends well beyond his actual conception and birth.
Hmm.
So that's a thing.
Yeah, I think the only time that it was a little weak for your all's side was the point at which you brought up the four felonies thing, because it gave Javier a personal grievance. But I think it kind of worked out well. I just think that the pro life argument, like it's motivated reasoning at this point. Like you've decided that it's murdering a human life, and that you're heroic and doing the right thing by opposing it. So a lot of their stuff is like motivated reasoning.
Yeah.
But it doesn't stand up to actual interrogation, which is what it was subjected to here, and why I think the pro-life side kind of falls short.
Yeah. So where did you think Josh was the strongest, and where was he the weakest? And be as savage as possible.
Well, he's a filthy lobsterback who insulted the glorious United States of America with his tea and crumpets drinking ass motherfucking trifling British Empire not getting out of Ireland self, which Sinn Féin, by the way, just won the majority in the Northern Irish Parliament.
Great.
So Star Trek might have called it with the Irish reunification of 2024, Aaron Go Bragh. Um, uh, my great uncle was Michael Collins, so I have to. But I think that making it a conversation and engaging as if he's being social with the other people, which he was, actually made it a much stronger discussion than I usually see on modern day debate, where people are just waiting to do their script or waiting to dunk on somebody. I feel like it turned it into a more honest and productive exchange between you guys.
Mhm. Yeah, well, again, I feel like Josh, in a way, kind of got them to drop their, or at least Javier,
Mm,
got Javier to drop his guard and actually have a real discussion.
yeah.
And, I feel like, you know, even though it felt much more like a panel than a debate, I also feel like just on the sheer I really feel like there was a ton of domination in that. Like
Mm,
probably one of the more dominant debates that I've had on the channel, particularly with Josh coming in there and helping me out. I also like that he made fun of me at the beginning.
yeah.
Yeah, because a lot of the chat doesn't like me
Mm,
because I make arguments that they can't handle. Um, and so, like, if by attacking me at the beginning, he makes it more likely that they're going to listen to his arguments. And I felt like his arguments tended to be more of, because it was more bantery. It's something that the peanut gallery, the cheap seats can latch on to. Am I calling you cheap, Josh? Yes, I am.
We's a lobster back. They're all cheap.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, all right. So, what else did you see about the debate? Like, where have we covered everything,
I
or
think
is
so.
there some stuff you want to get out?
I think so. I think that was a pretty good conversation about that debate, which was, again, I'm really happy that it wasn't some Nazi lunatic who was arguing for like genocide, and I didn't have to drink myself stupid to watch it.
Yeah. The oh, and by the way, here's some from Gempt. They're all weird libertarians and new atheists.
Yeah.
So, modern day debate audience, and I've said this before. I have said this to James. So the way the community came about is they are creationists, flat earthers, and new atheists. Like those are the three main groups in there. And then yeah, you have weirdo libertarians, and more than them, because I actually kind of like weirdo libertarians because I used to be one. But they also have like fascists. And I haven't watched Kay's debate with Richard Spencer because gross. But there was one thing that I appreciated about that debate being there, and it's like they gave the they gave the reactionaries a debate where they would both like and hate both members,
Mm,
because they, of course, they like Richard Spencer because neo-Nazi, and but then also suddenly he's arguing for pro-choice, which they are most likely going to be against, and then you've got Kay, who is pro-life, an actual pro-life activist, but she is progressive in every other way, which just I appreciate any kind of situation that forces people to think outside the ways that they normally think. So that is the one way in which I will praise the inclusion of Richard Spencer. However, that I would have also said, my God, what the hell are you doing, James?
mm. I can't believe he's still a thing, man.
He's not.
Yeah,
That's the thing. He's really not.
good.
And that may change, but I don't think it will. My feeling is that I think there's a decent amount of evidence that like Richard Spencer, Milo Yiannopoulos, like all of these people were being funded by the Mercer family, and kind of were gathered up and gotten publicity on by Steve Bannon.
Mm,
And I feel like Bannon and Trump are probably, there's going to be a Bannon contingent and a Trump contingent for as long as there is a Republican Party, at least for the next 50 years or so. But I also think that, they're on their outs. Trump may run again in 2024, but I have a feeling if he does, he's such an old man. I don't think he was already I think like the oldest, if not one of the oldest elected president in American history. So 4 years later, is he going to be the man that he was in 2016? I don't think so.
yeah, well, Himmler, or no, it was Heydrich, excuse me, had an interesting quote after the Nazis took power. He said that there's no need for revolutionaries once the revolution has been accomplished. And
Yeah,
I think that applies to people like Spencer.
yeah, that's a good point. Who said that? Because I
Uh,
think
I think it was Heydrich. It was either Heydrich or Himmler. It was one of the two
oh yeah, that
bad
makes
guys.
sense. Well, yeah, and then they get hit with the Night of Long Knives because of
Yeah.
course.
Well, that was after. That was their kind of commentary on that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so they did the Night of Long Knives before and then just kind of took a victory lap.
Yeah.
Well, that's something that people who, are in the Proud Boys and these other far right movements,
Hmm.
you guys need to understand, like if you're like with the Proud Boys or Ram or the Oath Keepers or whatever, you guys are the people they're going to use you and eliminate you. I guarantee it, because fascism has done that in every country that it's risen in. Now, hopefully, that will never happen because they will never be able to take total power, or at least a good amount of power again. But who knows? Gas prices are through the roof. Biden is failing.
475 by me, man, and I get cheap gas down in Florida.
Yeah, I need to. Okay, that meme that's like, "Mom, can we have McDonald's?" And it's like,
Hmm.
we have food at home, and then like the food we have at home, and
Yeah.
it's like garbage. My wife was out, and she was driving. She's like, "I'm gonna get gas." I'm like, "We have gas at home." Because I right at the beginning of this, I knew it was going to go up. So like when it was at its lowest point, I went out and I got like 10 extra gallons. And then when I was forced to refill again, like a month later or so, I refilled and got another 10 extra gallons, and
Might be a good
that
move.
is serving us well. But also, by the way, people, if you're going to do that, if you're going to stockpile gasoline,
It
because
varnishes.
yeah, what did you say?
It varnishes after a few months.
Yeah, you need to add something to it if you keep it for like longer than a month before you use it. Otherwise, it will fuck up your engine. So yeah, and I learned that, by the way, by totally accidentally destroying a leaf blower,
Yep.
because I left the gas in it like over the winter.
I saw an Afghani blow out a mini bike like that.
Wow. Yeah. So, all right. Well, Bobby, I'll give you one last question on the debate.
Sure.
Where do you think I was the strongest at the debate and the weakest, and where do you think Josh was the strongest and the weakest in the debate?
Strongest is that you brought like a formal structure to it. You kind of established like a value criterion at the beginning. Even if people aren't conscious of it, it kind of sticks in the back of their brain. Uh, weakest, um, weakest, you kind of stuck to the formal debate when it turned into like a more of a panel a little too long, but
Mhm.
that wasn't really, I don't think, a detriment. Um, Josh didn't bring like the formal debate to it, but he brought like a really good conversational attitude to it. He didn't really like go after their arguments to defeat them necessarily, but he engaged them honestly. So it kind of brought out more of a conversation thing. Other than being a filthy lobster back, I think he was a really good addition to your little panel that you had.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I want to collaborate with him more because he's a really fun guy,
Yeah.
and I think he's going to be perfect for modern day debate. I'm glad I got him on there. And honestly, whenever if you're interested in doing a debate, let me know, because you've partnered
Yeah.
with me before and that
Yeah.
worked out really
Yeah,
well.
man. Let me know. Just give me like a couple days notice to do some research.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
If you need a little help talking about guns with somebody before your talk with JF, let me know.
I
Because
will,
I'm,
if I wind up doing the thing with JF. I
yeah,
definitely will.
'cause I'm putting together a 45 as we're talking.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So, all right. So, why don't you plug your pluggables, and we will move on. Though I will say, and I wanted to ask you about this because I felt I had a weakest moment in the debate,
Hmm.
and it was when I I mispronounced ectopic pregnancy.
Oh yeah, like pedantry of like mispronunciation, man. Like who gives a shit?
Yeah. Well, great. I'm glad. No.
Yeah. Language is use. Your idea was communicated.
Yeah, so yeah, do you have, so plug your pluggables and then we can drop out of here.
Yeah, I'm Mustache Bob 2 on Twitter. Follow me there. If you're Mustache Bob 1, contact me so I can fight you, because there can be only one. Mustache Mafia on YouTube. I used to kind of do SoundCloud, but I'm mostly on YouTube now. I'll be hosting a few more conversations probably this month, so watch my little space. listen to everything I say because I'm very smart. No, I'm just kidding. Come and
Yes, Bobby is very humble, but he is
yeah.
a very smart guy to listen to, and I have benefited from his perspective, both as a philosopher and as a former active duty military guy who's done like 2 tours in like Iraq and Afghanistan.
But thanks for listening to me, guys. Join the conversation on my thing, and thanks for engaging with Brenton's stuff because he's got good content too.
Yeah. So guys, Durruti Shadow of the People, the Spanish Kickstarter should be launching soon. I've been stuck finishing up a screenplay. And I need to get that done. I'm actually going to finish it as soon as we're done here. Bobby, next week, we need to do the final Homage to Catalonia chapter.
Yeah,
I've been
man.
dragging my feet on. It's just because I like you so much, and I don't
Well,
want.
we can keep doing stuff, man. I'd really love for you to read The Uprising by Biardi for a book club. I got our mutual friend BZ Douglas to potentially read another book for a book club.
Nice.
Get you in on that.
Yeah. I love the Radical Book Club
Yeah.
because Nestor Machno had a Radical Book Club,
Yeah.
and that worked out really well, at least until it didn't. But yeah, so Durruti Shadow of the People is coming up. The graphic novel for Snow White Zombie Apocalypse is going to be out soon. I'm still working to get everything together. It's taking a much longer time than I thought. I thought I would be fulfilling by now, but I'm still in the creation phase. So people are wondering about that. It's literally, I get out from under this screenplay, and that is my next priority. So please do I guess bear with me as we go forward. Durruti number 2 is being created, and I'm getting the art back, and it's freaking phenomenal.
Did you put the line in yet?
No, we haven't gotten to that point yet, but yes, I will put that line in there.
Thank you.
So the Durruti issue 2 is going to be out. Nestor Machno is in it. And I'm also going to be launching a new Kickstarter very, very soon, just about ready to do that. And I have, so there's a lot of stuff on the horizon. It's just, do I have the time to actually physically do the stuff that I need to do to make it happen? Not until I'm done with the screenplay. And so with that note, I'm going to sign off and write till 6 a.m. So from me to all of you, this has been Insurrection with Brenton Lengel. Special, I just did a kick-ass debate with Josh Hilditch. Look for that debate to be posted on this channel very soon, as well as my debate against that. Well, it's not even really a debate. My crazy screaming match against Alex Stein 99. If nothing else, you can take advantage of my pain, and you can see me make a guy's face turn red and run away at the end.
That was really funny.
Yeah. Oh God. And people are like, well, he said he had to go to the bathroom. Like, yeah, it's a freaking excuse.
That was a weird day, man, because I went on a really weird date right before that. And
that was with the woman who didn't she was really super mad that that you made it through the war.
No, that was I'll tell you who that is offline.
Okay, well, we'll talk about it later. All right, so from me to all of you, peace. Catch you on the flip side. God, that was lame.